Shut up.
Don't stop.
Welcome to Android Authority on Air, the original Android Hangout show on Google+. I'm Derek Ross.
I'm Scott Anderson.
I'm Dan Charlton.
And I'm Jonathan Franklin.
And as you can see and hear, Scott Anderson is back. He hasn't been on the show in, I think 3 weeks ago. The last 2 weeks he was absent. So we haven't seen him in a few weeks. For those of you that are fans of the show, you will be happy to know that the reason Scott wasn't here for the past 3 weeks is he was actually attending a seminar. He was attending a seminar on how to make your bed. And if you look directly behind Scott, you will see the fruits of his labor have been accomplished. He has successfully made the bed. This is an Android Authority on Air first. I don't even know if I can go on. I'm ecstatic right now.
I came back a changed person, I just want to say that much.
Well, the YouTube comments and the Google Plus comments about the bed being made have all been invalidated. So thank you, Scott, for at least giving us something to talk about for the first
Invalidated,
minute or two.
and it really got to me, and so I wanted to make a change.
Well, that's good, man. I'm happy for you. Okay, so besides beds being made and Scott being back from the land of Oz, we're gonna hit you up with some ecosystem news. A few things happened the last day of I/O. We didn't have a chance to report on, so we're gonna hit you with that. We're gonna talk about some rumors in the Android ecosystem. Cards, all the things, at least in terms of UI for apps, and then some device news. Some Galaxy S4 news, a little bit of HTC One stuff, and some carrier stuff like Jennifer Lopez. All right, so John, I/O came in and is gone. Did we miss anything last week? A few things from the keynote and so forth.
Yeah, a couple of talks after, ours was on Thursday, and they gave a couple of talks afterward, but there were quite a few hints at an upcoming version of Android, which is most likely to be called 4.3. One thing to really note was a lot of the talks were very heavily oriented toward design and teaching developers good design principles, why they designed Android, in its current state, the way that it is, and really how to make your apps just really fast and fluid. But another couple of things that really did get shown off and are coming to Android that they pointed out were, one is there's actually finally an official library to implement the action bar on versions of Android that don't have, Honeycomb on forward where it had that library baked in. So it'll work very similarly to Action Bar Sherlock, which most of the developers have gone with. And the I/O 2013 application was actually written using that library, so if you want an indication of how that does, and usually they open source the I/O app afterwards, so you can kind of see what they did with it. The other one was it was Romain Guy and Chet Hass's Android graphics performance talk, and the whole time they were talking, they were just kind of jokingly saying an upcoming Android release that shall remain unnamed, and they gave a couple of hints at it. Maybe it's not a full version increase, maybe it's just an iterative thing, and they did cover some architectural things. And two things that they really mentioned was that the system is automatically going to reorder and merge GPU tasks, which is something that developers have had to do. And basically what that does is instead of loading like a bitmap, then text, then a PNG, then it brings all those commands together, or to load all the images, all the text in blocks. So it reduces the number of commands, and the GPU doesn't have to change states as much. So it really makes the application a lot faster and more fluid. The other was that they're introducing some multi-threading into the actual rendering pipeline, so that you can use, instead of one thread, you'll have 4 cores to do things like drop shadows and basically more butter in the next. This is just the next kind of evolutionary step as far as them trying to make Android a lot smoother and faster and easier for developers to get a really smooth feeling, really good performing app. And a couple of the web talks, we know that Blink Engine was something that they forked from WebKit, and they're working on it very quickly. The question was how fast it was going to evolve. Well, they've already stripped out 8.8 million lines of code from Blink Engine. So
Yeah.
moving extremely fast. And it's good that they're not having to kind of keep up with all the legacy WebKit stuff, because WebKit is spread across so many types of devices. But it's showing that they're really serious about making Chrome capable of evolving in the direction they want it to and be a real competitor to, WebKit, which is on Safari and so many other different browsers. But
Yeah.
8.8 million lines of code, that's crazy.
Well, and they're thinning it down, which can only make it faster. They're getting rid of unneeded code, so Chrome is going to get faster. And I don't know about you guys, but loves me some fast web browsing. So
No, absolutely.
It's easier for the developer too. They don't have to maintain as much. So
Exactly. No, I think Blink is a really, really good step for Google to take, and forking WebKit, getting out from underneath the shadow of Apple, who Apple maintains WebKit the same way Oracle maintains their stuff, which is to say it's there. They kind of half-heartedly support it so that they can run around the world bragging about how they're in charge of it. But it doesn't really go anywhere or do anything and isn't all that great for people, but they're kind of stuck using it. Right? Like, it's the same thing with Java and with OpenOffice that's now defunct because LibreOffice killed it. Right? Like, Blink is going to kill WebKit because Google is actually going to maintain it and push it and drive it. And realistically, Google knows a crapload more about how to serve the web than Apple ever will, because that's what Google does, right? Like, they're primarily an internet company. Apple is not. They trade on the internet, they work with the internet, they interface with it, and obviously do very well with it, but they're primarily a hardware company. That's their main focus. That's what they've always been. They've made hardware and some software, but they're not an internet company.
Do you think Apple will start supporting it more so now that Google is coming out with a competitive, or could potentially be more competitive than WebKit itself?
No, because I don't think that Apple gains anything out of being behind WebKit.
Yeah,
they gain some compatibility, which is nice, but Google's going to make sure that Blink runs just fine on Mac. If they can leverage Blink into a iOS app, that's even better for consumers.
So
they're pretty much stuck with WebKit there.
So ultimately, if Blink prevails and Apple keeps supporting WebKit, they will be supporting a dying breed, if you will.
Well, I mean, look at it, right? Safari is not exactly a popular desktop browser. Even on Macs, people use Firefox, people use Chrome. Safari is the default, and then they replace it with something that they like better, just like on Windows, where it comes with Internet Explorer, and then they replace it with something they like better. The difference is the population of Windows computers is vastly larger than the population of Macs, so Safari is not really all that used.
True.
Right?
Yeah,
And
it's not like
the
you have
downside
four
for
places
Apple-
forcing you to use it like you do with Internet Explorer either.
Yeah, the downside for Apple is in terms of statistics reporting. It's one of the things that we keep seeing is all these reports about how people are far more engaged with their iOS devices than they are with Android devices. And part of the reasons the statistics say that is because the people who are analyzing the stats look at WebKit stats. Right? They see, well, this many millions of people connected to the web from a mobile device running WebKit. Therefore, it's Safari. Doesn't matter if it's running WebKit on Android, it's still getting lumped in as Safari.
Yeah.
So if browsers were more accurately reporting that they're blank and therefore Google and not WebKit and therefore Apple, I think that people would get a much better picture of how few people actually rely on Safari.
Okay.
Definitely good. They're already experimenting with the engine too. So OilPan was one thing that they're.
All right, so John, did we have any other tidbits the past week from the ecosystem?
They talked a little bit more about Hangouts. This was on Google Plus. This wasn't really on the talks at I/O, but people were concerned about the move to Hangouts after Gmail and making outgoing calls, and they basically clarified that outgoing calls are coming to Hangouts very soon, and it's also going to be the future of Google Voice, which is very good news because Google Voice is just something that hasn't gotten a lot of love lately, and
it's interesting that they're going to
the last several years.
Well, yeah, it's interesting that they're. I mean, I understand making an outgoing call. Okay, so that doesn't make it a Google Voice replacement. I mean, you need greetings for calls. You need.
They were talking about the integrated. You could already make calls from Gmail, and you can't do it right now.
Yeah, but I'm wondering how, I saw the post where they said, in case you haven't figured out, Hangouts is the future of Google Voice. So does that mean that you're going to be able to make an outgoing call and that's it? Or are we talking about like the two of them all coming together where you're going to get some type of, answering voicemail system? I want to know how deep of integration the two are going to bring.
I have to assume it'll be pretty deeply integrated. I mean, already you can have voice send your voicemails transcribed to Gmail, right? All of your Hangouts are getting logged to Gmail. It doesn't seem that difficult to just integrate the both of them right there in Gmail. And then as far as the calls, right now, while everybody's been up in arms about the outgoing calls, incoming calls still come into Hangouts. Right? I've been answering calls on my computer all left and right through Hangouts because I'm sitting at my desk, I've got a mic, why wouldn't it? So those
calls actually seem to work better than Gmail did.
Yeah, I would agree. So they definitely still have the calling capacity. It's just the outgoing, and even the outgoing, to say it's gone isn't entirely true. You can still place an outgoing call through a Hangout, but you have to start a Hangout first, which means you have to have another participant. Right? It used to be that you could start a Hangout just with you and then invite people, and that doesn't seem to be an option anymore either.
Do you think that they're going to go with voice calling a VoIP way with regards to mobile, just over data?
I think that's going to be the direction that carriers eventually go once they all kind of may not look like it. They might keep a plan like that, but we're eventually going to be doing all our voice over data anyway. So.
Yeah, I would think that they would. To compete with Skype and Facebook Messenger and so forth. All the competitors are doing it.
Yeah.
As far as voice integration goes, I don't think so. Because right now they essentially already have that functionality with Hangouts, with the Hangouts app, right? It's just video only instead of video and voice. But that's definitely VoIP when you're doing it, for the audio part of it. So the thing that they can do with voice that Skype and Facebook and all the others can't do is they can leverage actual phone numbers and the actual phone network that's been in place for decades, right? With voice, you can call out to other landlines. You can do that with Skype, but they charge you for it.
Yeah, so it'll definitely be interesting over the next coming week. So I think it'll be exciting and definitely something that Google Voice users will want to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, the big thing that Google has with voice that they can leverage is they can allow other people to pick up their your grandmother, pick up her old school telephone because she doesn't have a cell phone because she's in her 80s, and why would she need one? So she picks up her landline phone and dials you, and it calls your Hangouts app.
Which means it calls you no matter what platform you're on.
Exactly.
Or where you're at.
Skype and everybody else can't leverage because they can't take incoming calls to a number, right? A 10-digit phone number as opposed to your Skype handle or your Facebook handle.
Unless you bought a Skype number with the paid version.
Yeah, but we're talking about free.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about some more things that came out of I/O. Let's talk about some rumors because you know what? Loves me some rumors because they get the heart beating, it gets us excited for upcoming products, and you know what? I just like it. It makes me smile. Puts a smile on my face. So, Android and Nexus rumors that came out of I/O. So obviously we didn't see a new version of Android, but we know it's right around the corner from server logs and so forth. There's all sorts of hints, and there's all sorts of different hints and different I/O sessions, such as like a Cthulhu type monster from Final Fantasy and all the boss powers from the slideshow listed, like Jelly Bean is a power, Key Lime Pie was a power, and then a little bit later on during the design session, there was an Android character sitting on a park bench eating some key lime pie. So Google pretty much did what they do best, and they trolled us, they teased us, and we love them for it. We know that key lime pie is the next iteration name. We don't know when it's coming. We don't know the version number. None of that really matters. The fact that Google played along with us and gave us tidbits of info, and Dan Moreau yelled "Hollow YOLO" during the fireside chat. It was all cool. But anyway, so let's get back to so a white Nexus 4 was actually spotted at I/O, and it was running Android 4.2.1 right now. But as I said, version numbers aren't going to mean anything. But it was a white Nexus 4, which we've seen leaked all over the place for months. Rumor has it that that device will become available or announced on June 10th, and that is also rumored to be the same day that Android 4.3 becomes available. And maybe a Nexus 7 refresh will be maybe made for pre-order or at least announced on that date. And maybe, this is a long shot here, maybe another device. This past week after I/O, a Google-branded media streaming device, kind of like a Nexus Q, kind of like a Google TV, a media streaming device passed through the FCC. And the neat thing about that is it was actually called Media Player, and the device name was H840 device, and the model number was H2G2, which I'm not a fan of this because I don't read books, but whatever. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that's a little hat tip to them, so I don't know if it's going to be...
The rest of the filing was plastered with 42s everywhere.
Yeah, so is it going to be like a towel we're going to get? I guess that's something big in the... Nah, I'm just kidding.
Well, there's been people speculating that it's essentially a Nexus Q rehashed.
Well, yes, that and more. I'm saying it's that and more because there's been reports that this is going to be heavily focused on gaming. So it's going to be a way for Google to take over the living room. Now, let's say all these things happen here in another 2 weeks or so. Well, it just so happens on June 10th is the first day of Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference. So
Apple doesn't attend.
That Apple doesn't attend, yeah. But that would steal a lot of thunder from WWDC if Google made all these major announcements of it. A Nexus 4, Nexus 7, an Android gaming console, or media streaming player, whatever the hell you want to call it, all on the same day of that conference. So that'll be pretty interesting. If those rumors and speculations do turn out to be true, I'm definitely going to be having my buttons and F5 and mouse clicks and all that stuff ready to go on the Play Store that day, all day long.
Yes, expect things to sell out roughly 5 minutes after they go on sale. And then be back in stock 5 minutes later and gone 5 after that.
Yeah, so in general Nexus device ordering fashion, be sure to press F5 all day long to help crash the servers, because that's what we do. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But I'm going to be curious if we'll see some new devices, if these rumors are... they're definitely coming. We know that a new device is coming. It passed through the FCC, so it's just a matter of when.
That doesn't necessarily mean it's coming.
Oh, it's coming.
Lots of things go through the FCC and never see the light of day.
It's coming, Dan. That's really it for rumored devices after I/O. Let's talk about some stuff we do know about, such as Scott Anderson making his bed and talking about app updates.
Yeah, I made my bed. Okay, app updates. Chrome Beta for Android has kind of been on a tear lately since I/O. It's gotten 2 updates, a lot quicker. The biggest notable one was today. Google Translates. Whenever you come across like a page that's written in German or a language that is not your native language, it will bring up a bar from the bottom asking if you want to translate it. Pretty cool, and it works beautifully. Still a little bit of bugs with displaying the translated text, in my opinion, but pretty cool. Also, full screen on tablets. Which is nice, and it was on phones before, but it's also nice to have on tablets, more screen space, be able to do more. Support for a full screen API, it's nice. Also that Google Plus integration, the scroll down thing, a little bit buggy on the most recent app. And also a new graph showing your estimated bandwidth savings. Before it just showed you how much data you actually saved. Now it has a little bit more of like the system level UI of how much data you've used, kind of like that. And then mobile-friendly error pages, kind of cool. Also, the new tab is on the top. You don't have to click...
You don't have to hit the tab button and then click new tab. It's actually one less tap.
That was annoying.
Yeah.
That was really annoying. And then also, a lot of apps, Derek, received card UI updates.
Yeah, so card all the things, as I said earlier. The Google Play Store has a card UI. Google Plus, if you're rocking Google Plus right now on the web watching us, has cards all over the place. So Google's moving towards this, card UI kind of focused off of Google Now, that type of UI and apps.
Obviously, they stole this idea from iOS 7.
Well, apps are... Come on, Dan. We're getting questions about why you're so anti-Apple here. Don't be saying stuff like that.
I'm not the one pushing the rumors about how everybody stole this idea for UI.
So Card UI has come to a bunch of apps besides the Google Play Store. Well, Play Music's gorgeous. We got that last week, obviously. We got books last week. And since then, we got magazines. YouTube actually was updated before I.O., and Google Earth. And they don't really have cards so much, but they have the new slide-out menu with the actual menu buttons at the top depicting it's an actual menu. And then Google Shopping got updated. There's just... And Google Drive got updated as well. These are... The Google Drive update is just as awesome as the music update is when it comes to cards. Scott, you want to talk a little bit more about that?
The slide-out UIs?
No, the Google Drive. You were talking about how you were a huge fan of it earlier.
Oh, yeah. Huge fan of it, and huge fan of where they're going with it. It had a large update to version 1.2, and basically you have a new grid view that makes it easier to find your files. New quick preview lets you view photos and other files from within the app. You can scan documents, receipts, and letters for safekeeping in Drive, basically with your camera or a previous file. You can also download a copy of files to your local device.
Oh, finally.
Yeah, which is very nice. Spreadsheets, if you use spreadsheets on a tablet or your phone, the editor now supports changing fonts, colors, and alignment, which I don't know why it didn't have this before, but yeah. You can view the properties of files from within the editors, which is very nice. And lots of bug fixes and visual improvements, and in my opinion, performance improvements as well. It's
there's a new feature called Scan. I mean, really, it's just take a picture, but it's called Scan. So I saw a neat use case for this today. So let's say you want to keep all of your receipts, for tax purposes or whatever, for checkbook tracking, or however you want to do it. You want to keep all your receipts. Well, you just scan them into Google Drive. So you take your receipt, you open up Drive, you hit the little scan button, and then basically you just take a picture, really. You take a picture with it, and it scans it. But it actually does scan it because it does OCR. So
OCR, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so now that receipt becomes searchable. So if you say, when the hell did I buy that, lawn chair? Now you can go into Drive and just search for lawn chair, and then it'll find the receipt for you. So it is a scan, but it's a picture.
For viewers that don't know, OCR is optical character recognition. It's typically in enterprise-grade scanning software, and it's usually pretty pricey.
Well, it'll scan your image for you, your receipt. So, I mean, you don't have to use it for a receipt, but that was a neat use case, which I might try to do.
So, yeah, you can search for the text, and the text becomes searchable, but a true OCR allows you to edit it.
No, that's not true.
It is an editable file,
OCR doesn't make it editable. OCR just makes it searchable.
OCR just translate. It doesn't. Okay.
It depends on what you're outputting the format in. If you're putting it out as a PDF, that's not editable because it's PDF.
That's
editable if you have a full version of Adobe.
Either way, it has OCR support. We don't need to get into semantics what it is or isn't. It has OCR support. I don't know if it's actually editable. I didn't try that, but I did try scanning a receipt after I saw the article online from I don't remember where, but it was a pretty neat idea. So they just create a folder called receipts and they scan them all in there. Pretty cool.
Then Google Play magazines got updated. Card UI, new slide-out menu, bug fixes. Flickr updated their app, new UI for the app. Also, 1 terabyte of storage space, which is freaking awesome.
Yes, sort of. Isn't it still just for pictures and videos, though?
Yes.
But think about it.
Is there a file size limit, like per file?
I do not know if there's a file size limit, but if you're looking for a photo locker for, if you're a photographer, I mean, Google Plus gives you 15 gig, so 1 terabyte.
It's a lot of space, but it seems to me like it's overkill for the way it's limited, right? Like, it's not just a generic terabyte of space of online cloud storage.
It's just for photos, yeah. But if you're taking multiple, I don't know how big they, 50 meg raw files, I'm sure you can fill that up pretty quickly if you're an avid photographer.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I wonder if there's a file size limit, because I know you can put videos there. So, like, if you have home videos or DVDs that you put into your computer, if you could store those up there. But, I mean, that's potentially a gigabyte plus file size.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be interesting to
If
check
you could
it
do
out.
that, that's definitely worth it. Back up your whole video library.
And the app got a really nice update, too.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. I'd recommend checking it out if you're into pictures. Then also the Opera browser got a UI overhaul, and it left the beta stage, so that's big news, and it's really nice. It's a very popular browser for Android, and I know it's a lot of it's a go-to browser for a lot of people that I know. Chrome is becoming more so, acceptable. But it's good news, and it's pretty cool.
All right, guys, we're going to talk about some devices here. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and drop it in the comments. We're watching the comments on YouTube as well as Google+. And yes, we have been getting a lot of comments, actually, about Scott's bed being made. At least like 3 or 4 or 5 people commented about it. So, yes, he has made his bed. If you're tuning in late to the show, that's why he hasn't been here for about 3 weeks now. He actually has been on a retreat. He's been going to a seminar daily on how to properly make his bed. So he's shaking his head.
It was a free seminar.
He's shaking his head, but he knows he damn well went there.
It was free.
All right, so let's talk about some devices. So if you're on Big Red, like this guy, and like another guy in here, Haha, yeah. Haha, you're on Verizon. You can now get the Samsung Galaxy S4 as of today. Yay! It's $199 with a 2-year contract. If you don't like contracts, it's $649. You can also actually get it on Amazon Wireless and save $20 with a 2-year contract, so you can get it for $179. I don't know how long that special is available, but it is now. So if you want the S4 and you're on Verizon, your contract's up, or you're going to be a new customer, you can save $20 and get it from Amazon.
Do you know if it's new only or if it's for renewals as well?
It's for renewals, new contracts, and for new customers. You can save $20.
A lot of times those special deals are for new customers only.
Yeah. So you might as well save $20 if you can. Amazon.
Definitely.
They just
might as well offer to renewals because you get another 2 years of service, right?
Yeah.
And so, Samsung announced the developer edition for both Verizon and AT&T, but that's really irrelevant if you're into rootin' and ramen. Which why would you want the developer version if you weren't? So go ahead and save yourself a couple $100. Because Dan Rosenberg, which he's really well known for cracking Motorola devices, he took his knowledge and applied it to the Samsung Galaxy S4. And you can now use his program called Loki to unlock the bootloader of the Samsung Galaxy S4. So
now he came up with this. He came up with this process prior to Verizon releasing it. And Derek, you want to elaborate on why?
Yeah. He actually got it to work, I believe, on the AT&T variant, but he didn't release it because he didn't want Verizon to do anything crazy beforehand and patch the bug or the exploit that he used.
Nice.
So he waited until the Verizon version hit the store, and they said, "Okay, now I'll release it because you can't patch it now." Haha.
Nice.
Very wise.
Yeah, smart guy. Well, obviously, he figured out how to unlock the bootloader on one of the hardest devices to unlock the bootloader on. I mean, it's a very secure device. So, if you want the S4 and you want to put something like CyanogenMod, they already have, I don't know if their nightlies are available yet, but Steve Kondik posted pictures a couple weeks ago with it running on the international or the T-Mobile version, I believe it was. So yeah, it's nightlies, if they're not already out, they're going to be coming. So now that the Verizon one can be unlocked, chances are some developer will pick that up. And I'm not going to speak for the CM team, but there's a high probability that it'll be available. And when is that coming? Soon.
Always. Look for 10.2 release candidate, roughly the time Jelly 4.3 releases.
Oh, come on now. So, you know what? I wouldn't see it taking entirely that long because all somebody has to do is get a hold of the Google edition of the S4, and then they basically have AOSP for it.
Yeah, minus the Verizon parts.
Yeah, minus the CDMA, radio.
Minor detail.
Yeah, minus the rail.
Sure, we can put this ROM on here, but it won't work like a phone.
Yeah. The rail is always the pain in the butt. All right, so let's talk about some numbers real quick. The Galaxy S4 sells a lot. We know this. So in the past 25 days, it's less than a month, they've sold 10 million devices, which that's a lot. We know they're going to sell a lot. No surprise.
I'm really blown away that there's 10 million people that want that phone. And I know they're going to keep selling millions more.
Well, yeah, I mean, the S2 was the number one selling phone. The S3 was the number one selling phone. So obviously the S4, I mean, they're killing it. The HTC One, let's talk about that real quick. They actually had some supply issues and weren't able to sell as many in the beginning as they had wanted to. They've sold 5 million, which is actually a pretty good number if you think about it. I mean, 5 million is a very nice number for HTC. They should be proud of that.
It's a big bounce back from where they were with the 1X.
It's doing let's see, 490 or 4,490 or 900. I can't do math. It's doing a lot better than the HTC First.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, the first that's already gone down to $1 because they can't give them away.
Well, we didn't expect big things.
990,000. There we go.
You don't expect big things, but you don't expect it to drop to $1 on AT&T on contract like a week after it goes on.
A week after it was debuted at $100. It's like.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I think it's kind of cool that what was I gonna say?
All right, well, you think about it. So we all know that the Samsung Galaxy S4 has a Google edition, and we just mentioned. Well, the day that happened, a Samsung or a HTC employee tweeted, "Hey, you can spend $649 for plastic ... or you can wait." Everyone's like, "Holy shit! The HTC One is getting a AOSP stock Android version." And then HTC execs came out and said, no, that's not happening.
Well, wait, no, they came out and said, we're not building a Nexus device.
Yeah, they came out and said, we're not building a Nexus device.
But Samsung didn't release a Nexus device either.
Yeah. So a lot of people, including us, actually last week, Dan, you actually made that point last week on the show, and we said, yeah, they aren't building a Nexus device. So Russell Hawley has been on the show a couple times, good friend of mine. He actually broke the news about the Google edition of the Samsung Galaxy S4 the night before I.O. And everybody basically said, you're full of shit, you're a liar, you don't know what you're talking about. And then, he was right. Well, he seems to know what he's talking about. So when he announced today that the HTC One was in fact going to release a senseless version of the One, I believe him. I think he knows what he's talking about, and he said that we should see an official announcement within the next 2 weeks. So I'm going to say if you're looking to buy the HTC One, wait another week or two if you can. There might be some big news coming.
Yeah, and I want to
buy one.
So I have a question here. So that's awesome that HTC is going to do this. And you remember their whole marketing thing is we have two big pushes with the HTC One. We have boom sound, and we have this amazing camera. So how are those two things going to work on nonsense ROMs? I mean, is boom sound going to blow us away and sound is amazing? Maybe, but what about that Sense camera? There's no way in hell the camera's going to operate the same way. So I'm really curious as to how that's going to pan out. Dan, what do you think on that?
Well, if HTC was smart, and really if HTC, Samsung, any of these companies were smart, what they would do is build the camera app the way they want it and make it run on a stock ROM. Then they just replace the stock camera app. Once they're done with that one, they move on to the next one and continue doing that through all of their custom apps. Oh, and wait, now they don't need a custom overlay at all.
Yeah,
Plus, they don't need to worry about carriers to
Store.
update. They can do exactly what Google does and release it through the Play Store and lock it down to only HTC devices.
So maybe it comes with the stock camera, and then HTC publishes an app to the Play Store saying, the stock camera is cool, but if you want to get the Sense camera and make it only available to that device...
Yeah.
There's
no reason why. Google has basically, through I.O., by not releasing an update to Android and just releasing a bevy of app updates, shown we can update our entire ecosystem and platform without touching the underlying operating system. There's no reason that OEMs can't do the same. None at all.
It's a good point.
Roll it into updates.
And that takes fragmentation and updates and carrier bullshit entirely out of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
Entirely out of the equation.
So speaking of OEMs, do you guys watching, listening, and also in the Hangout right now think that this is going to spawn some type of trend? We have the #1 Android manufacturer, phone manufacturer, having a stock Android version. Now it's really expensive, only available in the Play Store right now. Who knows? And only available in the U.S. So how many are they really going to sell? But HTC is doing it too. So there's two big name manufacturers doing it, and Sony, they're very developer friendly. They've released AOSP for various Xperia devices in the past, and as well as the tablet Z has AOSP available for it too. So, do you think we could see something coming down the line? This is a trend? Devices put out a flagship, or manufacturers put out a flagship phone, and maybe they put out a stock Android version for people that want the hardware but don't want the software. I mean, will LG jump on this trend here? Are we going to see an Optimus G Pro or G2 with stock Android in the near future?
That'd be cool.
Well, LG already did jump on by releasing the Nexus 4. If you want to put AOSP on your Optimus G, just
non-Nexus device,
it'll boot.
Yeah, non-Nexus device.
Yeah, but if you have an Optimus G, literally take a Nexus 4 ROM and flash it, and it will boot. You might lose network connectivity if you're not on, the right carrier.
Yeah.
And depending on what version you're coming from, you may need to flash some extra partitions. But the Nexus 4's ROM will boot on every other LG. Right? They're identical phones.
Yeah. Just
from the hardware perspective.
So we have a comment here.
But I don't know that I see this becoming a trend with OEMs, just because there's not a whole lot of incentive for them to release the devices like this. They aren't going to sell enough of them to make a profit off of it. But what I think they'll realize is all they have to do is publish the AOSP code that will run underneath of their skin, publish it to the web somewhere, and that's the people who are interested in this. That's all they want is the code, the underlying software. Even if they release it as a packaged ROM without the code, it'd be hugely beneficial to the custom development community. They don't even go out of their way to buy a special AOSP device if HTC or Samsung or LG is just going to release the AOSP software for it.
All right, Dan. So we have a comment here from Galen20K, and I think that a lot of people might be feeling this way. So he said, the HTC One is the absolute best phone that he's ever owned, and you guys should really try it if you haven't. So that brings up a good point. If you do own the HTC One, what are your thoughts about an HTC One, stock Android Senseless edition coming out? Are you going to be upset that this was announced, a month or two later? Is it going to make you want to get that device, or are you happy with what you have and you like Sense, 5.0? Let us.
If you already have an HTC One, you should not be upset at all. This coming out means that the ROM itself will go into your device with almost no effort whatsoever.
Yeah. On the topic of, the trends start catching is 100% dependent on carriers, because I think the biggest problem with stock is not that stock is stock, it's that stock doesn't exist on carriers like Verizon or Sprint. I mean, Sprint, you've had more Nexus devices on Sprint than before, but with Verizon, the only new flagship phone you have right now is a Galaxy S4, and that sucks. I mean, it's not that if you want a Galaxy S4, that's good. If you don't want a Galaxy S4, you've got no options whatsoever for a new flagship device. So Google releases the S4 Google Edition, and what carriers is on? It's on AT&T and T-Mobile, in which both of those carriers you can already use a Nexus device on. So maybe it's a better device, but it's also a lateral move. So until they get these devices on a carrier like Verizon or somebody like that, and by the way, Verizon, we hate you for this, then that's going to be when you know if AOSP can really catch on with the masses, because until, even when the Nexus has come to Verizon, it doesn't come every single year. You can't reliably say, I'm going to wait for the Nexus on Verizon, because you don't know if it's coming or not.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about another device here, and which is related to Verizon. So this past week, we saw some more leaks and some more confirmations, I guess, about the upcoming Motorola X phone. We saw an X phone with Sprint compatibility pass through the FCC. So generally, that means it's probably coming sometime soon, once it passes through the FCC. And the guys over at Droid Life were able to get a hold of the driver's file from Motorola, and by looking at the INI file, it mentioned a device that would be most likely Verizon's model number. So
I was going to say, you said it's compatible with Sprint, but not Verizon?
Well, it was the Sprint's radios. So
I can't possibly imagine Motorola being stupid enough to build a device that works on Sprint that's not also capable of working on Verizon. They would have to actively go out of their way to make that happen.
Or maybe Verizon doesn't want the device, and
No, my point is the hardware they're putting in it is going to accomplish those goals. They would have to go out of their way to find some obscure manufacturer who's making really crappy hardware to come up with something that's only going to run on Sprint. Verizon doesn't get a choice in it.
Remember, at least the SoC that's in there now isn't a newer Snapdragon processor. I believe it was just the dual-core S4.
Yeah.
Which it would have been the same processor that was in the Galaxy S3?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they were rendering
the hardware that is capable of simultaneously running on Verizon, Sprint, AT&T, and T-Mobile.
But my point is that there was a Samsung Sprint variant and there was a Samsung Verizon variant, so it's not like this isn't.
That
this
had a lot
isn't
more to do with
this is isn't something outlandish. People have done it before.
The radio in both of those devices was identical. That was the carriers pushing their branding onto Samsung.
Well, maybe it's going to happen again.
I mean, it certainly could. I don't think Motorola has ever released a cross-carrier device like that either.
Well, they do have devices that now have global GSM support.
Right. I mean, a lot of the Verizon Motorola's have the global support, but I mean, I don't think Motorola's released a device on multiple U.S. carriers like under the same brand, like the same brand name.
Yeah, they haven't done what HTC
on,
or Samsung has done.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens here. I mean, obviously, this is just speculation based off of some files that show up on the FCC's website, so anything's possible. But we do know that devices are coming, since we've seen a Sprint variant and a supposedly Sprint or AT&T variant show up as well. So usually that means things are coming when multiple model numbers of the same phone start showing up. On to devices that we can confirm. Google Glass. If you are an IO12 winner or a signer-upper, this does not apply to you. You already have your Glass, or it's being shipped to you. You picked it up already at IO with a 13. So if you're an If I Had Glass contest winner, this news applies to you. Yesterday, Project Glass announced that invites, purchase links are going to start being sent out to winners. And almost immediately after that notice went out, people started reporting, hey, I got my purchase link, I got my invite link. So there's already people that are picking it up next week from the If I Had Glass contest. So what's that mean? You're going to have to...
Or did they win the opportunity to buy glass?
Oh, you won the opportunity to buy it, yeah. You won the opportunity to spend $1,600 plus travel. Okay. Yeah. It's $1,500 plus tax plus travel, but I just rounded up to say $1,600. So you can go to L.A., New York City, or Mountain View to pick it up.
You have to pick it up in person?
You have to pick it up in person. You have to get... Basically, I'm thinking that... I could be wrong on this, but Google thought that the I.O. attendees are smarter than the average bear because they're generally a developer or a tech-savvy tech enthusiast, so they could probably figure out a lot of glass themselves, whereas the If I Had Glass winners are just random, everyday, average Joe people a lot of the times who may not be that tech-savvy and might need the hands-on training on how to use it. I could be wrong, but that kind of makes sense to me at least. So I'm thinking that's why If I Had Glass users have to go in person to pick it up. So, and the terms of service was updated yesterday to say you can have it shipped to you if you're an IO12 sign up. If you're an If I Had Glass winner, you have to go and pick it up. So, John and I, Scott, did you win as well? Okay, so John and I haven't gotten our purchase links yet, but very soon we're going to have to decide, as well as many of you probably watching right now, what do you want? Do you want charcoal? Do you want shale? Do you want tangerine, sky, or cotton? If you're deciding to spend the $1,500, that's the next decision to make. What color are you going to go for, John?
Heard a lot of people say the shale is nice.
You know what? I'm a fashionista, apparently. So I started saying to myself, you know what? I want sky because it stands out and it's pretty. I said I want tangerine because it stands out and it's kind of cool looking. And then I started thinking to myself, orange and blue, tangerine and sky, those colors don't go with everything, fashion-wise. So it kind of limits your wardrobe. Some things could clash. So I'm thinking the charcoal and shale, which is black and gray, might be the way to go. And then I thought white, but then I don't know if I'm able to rock white though. I don't know if that's me.
Not after Labor Day.
White's just not going to blend that well.
So Google Glass, hopefully in a couple weeks, John and I will be sitting here doing like Hangout on Airception. We'll be like doing it like in front of the webcam, and then we'll be doing it on Glass too. Anyway, so John, let's not talk about Glass anymore. Let's talk about NVIDIA Shield. Pre-orders went up, and we didn't have a chance to talk about it last week because we were I/O and all the things. You want to yak about that for a minute?
Yeah, they started May 20th, which if you order them now, you can get it for $350, which is actually a little bit cheaper than I thought they were going to be. I thought they were probably going to target about $500, but it's going to ship in June. And if you missed what Shield is about, it's basically kind of like an Android mini tablet as far as the display goes. It's a 5-inch 720p display. It also has an integral controller, integrated speakers, which the speakers, from every reviewer I've seen that's held them, said they're actually pretty amazing considering it's a portable device. The battery in it is gigantic. I mean, I can't remember what it is, but it's way more than most tablets have. It runs bone stock Android, and it does come with a Tegra 4, so you're going to get the Tegra platform and all the Tegra optimized, NVIDIA's own games. But the biggest thing is it links up with any Kepler NVIDIA desktop GPU, which is a GTK 650 or higher, and you can actually stream your PC games via Steam and play them on the Shield device. So you could play Skyrim on a portable controller Shield device or whenever you felt like playing. So that's kind of the biggest marketing thing behind it.
I get that NVIDIA is trying to push like their own technology with that, but there's absolutely no technical reason why you need to have an NVIDIA Kepler GPU in order to stream content from your computer to anything.
It'd be interesting to see.
You do need to have some kind of a modem.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter if you even have a GPU.
Or so NVIDIA would have you believe.
Yeah.
The big thing they're trying to sell new cards.
GPU actions to the desktop computer, which I can't possibly imagine they're doing.
They're just trying to sell new things.
I can't remember. Yeah. There were some parts of it that did require, because Tegra 4 is the only one that can do it too, it required some kind of hooks in the Kepler architecture to be able to do from the, I don't know if it's from the control side of things.
That is really, really bad coding.
Yeah, it could be. And I'm not going to analyze that part of it, but there was some requirement in terms of, I imagine, of course, their low-end cards would struggle to keep up with it anyway, but it'd be interesting anyway to see how the device does. I don't expect it to be anything more than something to appease, try to sell more desktop GPUs.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's probably going to be better than the Ouya. That thing, I have that thing, and if my 3, almost 4-year-old son didn't love playing it, I would put it on eBay already. That thing sucks. I will give a full review later. Moving on. Dan?
Yeah, so there's some interesting patent filings this week. The Microsoft versus Motorola case, which is in 2 parts, and I've spoken before about the first part of that, where the judge arbitrarily decided to set a FRAND rate because, you know, he thinks he has that kind of power. The second part of that, though, the judge sided with Motorola. I'm pretty sure this is the only time he sided with Motorola ever in this case, but agreed to have the rest of it be heard by a jury trial, which isn't really all that beneficial to Motorola, considering the jury pool is pretty much the population of Microsoft employees. So you win some, you lose some on that one. Really, the judge kind of had to side with Motorola because otherwise he probably would have gotten himself into some trouble for just flagrantly violating the law. Pretty much, if any party in any litigation asks for a jury trial at any point, that's the end of the discussion, period. They get a jury trial. That's the way the law works. Once you want one, that's it. That's all you got to do. This case originally started in Wisconsin and then got folded into this Seattle case. And in the Wisconsin filings, Motorola very explicitly and on the record asked for a jury trial. And then Microsoft basically tried to say, oh, no, they didn't. That doesn't matter. Yeah, it really did matter. And so the judge actually sided with Motorola on that one. The other Motorola case from Wisconsin was the Apple versus Motorola case that Judge Posner had heard and tossed out, basically saying, this is a waste of my time, you people don't actually want anything, get out. Oh, and attach prejudice to that because I don't want to hear from you again. So Motorola and Apple are both appealing it on different grounds, and Motorola very recently filed their brief in their appeal of it, essentially arguing that Judge Posner's ruling pretty much says if you've contributed your patents to a standard, you get no more rights over your patents ever again. There's no infringement, you can't sue anybody, even if they are willfully infringing and utterly and completely refusing to take a license, like, say, for example, Apple, who told a judge, we really don't care what value you set on these patents, we're still not going to license them. So when you're facing a potential licensee who's utterly and completely refusing to license your standards essentials patents, you should probably still be able to seek an injunction against those people, because otherwise, by submitting your patents to a standard, you are making them worthless and useless. So Motorola probably has a pretty good leg to stand on that one. Apple's appeal is less penetrating and more about whining, pretty much, about how we should be getting more thought and care and money, but not actually putting up any reasons why Posner's decision wasn't valid. In other Apple legal news, the Apple versus Samsung 2 case, which is the one that's mostly centered around search, and they had previously attempted to get injunctions against the Galaxy Nexus over that case. Apple is now trying to fold the Galaxy S4 and potentially Google Now itself into that case. So they're really now very much directly going after Google for search.
Because Siri does the same damn shit that Google now does.
Right. Because you ask it a question, verbally ask it a question, and it returns results, which apparently Apple forgets that Google search has been doing since Eclair.
Well, then you got the fact that Siri was bought by Apple as an app that existed
After
party.
Voice actions have been in Android since 2010. Siri was purchased by Apple in 2011.
And Google now is all about contextual data.
Which Siri is not.
Siri does not.
Even more than that, seriously, Apple is now trying to attack Google over search-related patents. Do you really think Google doesn't have prior art or better patents on search than you do? The biggest search provider in the world, by far. That's what you're going to go after. You're going to go after Google about search. Not rectangles and rounded corners and black devices. Search is what you're going to go after Google with. You nibble around the edges and don't go after Google for everything else and all of your other ridiculous nonsense like invalid bounce back and invalid unlock and invalid this, that, and the other patents. But search is what you settle on as your missile for Google. That's your thermonuclear war. I'm pretty sure that's more setting off a grenade in your own house.
All right, so any other patent news?
No, that's really it. Just Apple making themselves look like fools.
I think we have time for some big carrier announcements.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, so Verizon had an announcement this week. At CTIA 2013, Verizon has announced a new store partner. Before the event, the CEO said that they're going to have an announcement that they're going to want to tweet about. Everybody was really thinking this was going to be the HTC One for Verizon.
Because she said, we have an announcement you're going to want to tweet about, meaning it's huge, right?
Yeah, you'd think it's big news, something that people are going to be excited about. In fact, it was just Jennifer Lopez. I mean, don't get me wrong, Jennifer Lopez is nice to look at, but
kind of past her prime, though.
Not really something that gets me all ready to tweet about.
Oh my God, Jennifer Lopez, CTIA,
yes! Announced Vivo Mobile, which has social shopping stores for Latinos and stores opening in LA, New York, and Miami. So essentially it's blah Verizon.
No.
So you're going to be able to go to these stores as well as Facebook and do social shopping, and it's for Latinos, which is fine. She thinks it's an untapped market, and that's fine, but do we really need a whole entire online shopping store dedicated to that?
Yeah, I know a lot of Latinos, and I don't know any of them that are like, oh my God, I was going to get a phone, and I was just so blown away waiting for a carrier that catered just to me.
Oh my God, I need Jennifer Lopez cases for my phone.
Where is my Twitter account?
I don't know any Latino who's sitting there thinking, God, if only Jennifer Lopez had tried to sell me this smartphone, then I would have bought one from Verizon.
Oh my God, we should tweet this.
Now, to be honest with you, Dan, the most interesting thing about that is she's actually not just a talking head. She's not just a pretty face. She's not just a spokesperson. She's actually a major stakeholder in Viva Mobile. Like, it's actually, partly her company. So she's actually doing it, which she does her own clothesline, I think, too.
But I don't.
I just think
I don't think there's an audience for the market she's trying to create.
I think that Verizon trolled everybody, and it basically showed that CTIA, as the largest U.S. mobile-focused conference, is dying and dead. I think that's what the message was that Verizon wanted us to tweet.
Yeah. Don't waste your breath on CTIA.
Because didn't CTIA merge with, what did they merge with? Something else to become Super Mobile or something like that? What's it called? Like yeah, it's called like Super Mobile Show.
They're desperate to have relevance, and it failed.
Okay, so more importantly, if you are of Latin descent, and if this made you excited, if you are going to now walk into one of these locations and or like the page on Facebook, let us know, because we don't think that's that exciting. Maybe we're missing the buck. Maybe Jennifer Lopez has more cool than we think. So let us know. I'm actually very curious.
He has more knowledge of what it's like to be a Latino than I do.
Yeah.
But I just don't feel like Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Sprint aren't already reaching the Latino community.
I don't also think T-Mobile, Sprint, and AT&T are like, damn it, why didn't we get in on this?
Right. Next week,
We were focusing only on white people for so long.
Next week, Eva, what's her name? Eva Mendez becomes spokesperson for another. Yeah. Anyways,
She becomes the new Carly for T-Mobile.
Yeah. So yeah, she becomes the new Carly. All right. So Scott Anderson made his bed. Biggest highlight of the week, or HTC One stock Android. You let us know in the comments as well. That's a tough one for me. I don't know which one's bigger or better.
I'm gonna have an ego, and I'm gonna say me.
Well, you know what, Scott? You haven't done it in a while. Let everybody know where they can find us on this vast thing we call the internet.
You can find us at AndroidAuthority.com. If you're watching us on YouTube or listening to us, you'd be watching us on YouTube. You'd be listening to us on SoundCloud. SoundCloud, Podbean. It's been a while since I've done this, so I'm a little bit rusty.
I didn't make any mistakes when I did this last week or the week before.
None. Not a single one.
I'm just going to cry now. This is just rough.
You can find us everywhere you always find us. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments. Scott Anderson versus HTC One Android Stock Edition. Have a good night.
Peace.
Take it easy.